Continuing with our second page of our practice test. Number 4 is dealing with exponential growth or decay, and you will be given these formulas. Y equals a 1 plus r to the t, y equals a 1 minus r to the t. It's important to remember that a is your starting value of whatever is growing or decaying, and r is your percent growth or decay. So obviously you've got to read through the problem and determine whether you are growing or decaying, if you're increasing or decreasing. Those are the big words. So you purchase a rare coin. This is $1,000. This is your start. In other words, this is your A value. You increase 3% each year. So we are dealing with growth. We're going to be dealing with y equals A times 1 plus r raised up to the t. But super important, and this is the number one mistake. If kids do make mistakes on these problems, it tends to be right here. The r must be written as a decimal. To be safe, my suggestion is whatever percent they give you, divide by 100. That's literally what percent means. And you can see that r is going to be 0.03. So y is going to be 1,000. Here we'd have 1 plus 0.03 raised up to the t power. And 1 plus 0.03, of course, is just going to become 1.03. Now, in our homework, a lot of times we'd have to follow that up by taking our model and then making a prediction perhaps a number of years later, like 4 years later, 10 years later, whatever it might be. We are going to address problems like that, but they're the last two problems on this practice test. We'll get to that on the third video. For part B, let's say you buy a new cell phone and it's $600. So of course that is your starting amount. Depreciation, we're going to see a decrease of 20% each year. Well, again, to be safe, just type in your percent and literally divide by 100. And you'd see that you're at 0.2, or if you'd rather, 0.20. Obviously, with depreciation, we're dealing with y equals a 1 minus r to the t power. And pretty much all you got to do is plug this information in. We'll say 1 minus 0.20, bump it up to the t. And 1 minus 0.20 is actually 0.80. And that will be your final answer here. You can use this equation now to determine how much your cell phone would be worth 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years, whatever it may be. All right, so taking a look at the last two problems on this page, this is something we've been doing recently. You're going to be dealing with an exponential growth or decay function. You're given 2 points on it, but you're going to be asked more or less to find the exact equation, find the a and find the b. What I've been doing is I've been starting off with our smaller point, and that's a good thing to do. Y equals a times b to the x. Plug in your x and plug in your y. And of course, this is just going to become b to the 1. A times b to the 1, that's equal to 12. Take a look at your larger point, and don't be intimidated that the numbers might get a little bigger. That's perfectly okay. You've got y equals a times b to the x here just as well. You'd have 108 is equal to a times b to the third. Now at this point, what we were doing is we were literally dividing one equation by another. Take your larger equation, the one with the higher power, always keep that in the numerator. And take your smaller equation and put that in the denominator. If you do that, the problem works out in the easiest fashion. 108 divided by 12, well, we know it's 9. But whatever you're struggling with, if it's just basic arithmetic, just get help from the calculator. You're going to hopefully see that your A's cancel out. B to the third over B. Remember, we subtract our exponents, and we would have B to the second. Right now, you have to solve. Take a positive square root. Normally, we write plus or minus, but for these problems, our base is understood to be positive, so we're going to just have B equals 3. But you still have to find A. So come back and plug in your B value into either of your two equations, but be good to yourselves. Keep life simple. Choose the simpler equation. As you're working with easier numbers, you're less likely to make those silly mistakes. So I'm coming right back here to the simple equation, saying now I know what my B is. Plug in B equals 3. Divide both sides by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And you've got A is equal to 4. Please remember, though, and a number of kids did just write that, A is 4 and B is equal to 3. What you really need to do is write this equation out. This becomes 4 times 3 to the x. You need the y in there also. If you don't put the y in there, you're not writing it out as a function. Okay? Let's do our last one on this page. Let's work with 1, 8. Maybe get started with that first and say y is equal to a times b to the x. Here's your x, here's your y. So we have 8 is equal to a times b to the first. Take your big point, 4, 512, and you'll have y equals a times b to the x. We'll have 512 for our y. Our x value is going to be a 4. And again, divide, but take that smaller equation, put that in your denominator, and you can see that 512 divided by 8, maybe not as simple of an arithmetic fact that you would have memorized, but you'd get 64. Your A's are going to wipe out. B to the fourth over B is actually B to the third. And at this point, you want to get rid of that third power. To get rid of a cube, to get rid of a third power, you have to take a third root, or a cube root. So I'm going to take the third root on both sides. And at this point, remember that the cube root is under the math menu. You can come right here to number 4. Typing in the cube root of 64, you'll get 4. And wonderfully, that is your B value. But now come back to A is equal to A times B. But now you know your B is 4. Divide both sides by 4. You're going to get A is equal to 2. So finishing this off, y is equal to A times B to the x. Y equals 2 times 4 to the x. Okay, that's the end of our second page. And we'll have one more video wrapping up the financial problems and the applications of exponential growth and decay.